It was on March 15, 2020, where President Cyril Ramaphosa declared a national state of disaster due to the coronavirus pandemic. This in response to the government's efforts of fighting the spread of the virus. Soon after, as infection numbers continued to rise, the president announced that the country would be placed on lockdown with a number of restrictions. With the lockdown in place, Ramaphosa announced a 500 billion rand stimulus in April as government's measures to help with social distress. New contracts began to emerge as the needs of the country had slightly changed. SIU spokesperson Kaiser Kganyago says while it continues to conduct its investigations, it notes that in most instances, procurement processes were simply ignored in the awarding of these tenders.
The trend that we are finding generally is the fact that people are not following processes and people are not delivering the right material. Like when the request is for a certain kind of mask and they deliver a different kind of mask. And there are instances, for example, when you are supposed to bring PPEs, you've got to transport them in a specific way because of the nature of the health condition that they've got to be kept under, because they are going to be used for health reasons. And people just, instead of putting them in a closed baggie, for example, they will put them in a normal baggie to save costs and all of that. And we found also the fact that there people are conniving with each other to get the contracts, so that even the people that are not in that field. For an example, you'll find a construction company delivering PPEs. And then you ask yourself, but where are the expertise?
The SIU is currently investigating 1,774 companies which received PPE-related contracts. These tenders are estimated to be worth more than 13 billion rand. The SIU says investigations are 50% near completion.
We have delivered to the president 3 6-weekly reports so far, and we will be delivering the next one very soon. We hope to finalize most of this investigation by the end of the financial year, but obviously some of them might need further investigation, because sometimes when we get into this investigation, they are about PPEs. But when we are closer to them, we start seeing that it's not only about PPEs. And the proclamation R23 of 2020 only deals with PPEs. Therefore, for such investigations, we've got to then expand them and get an extension to other proclamation to make sure that we then investigate other things.
Among those who are under the SIU's investigation is presidential spokesperson Kusela Diko's husband, Madzikana Thandisizwe Diko, who received a tender through his company Royal Bata worth 125 million rand. She has since taken leave of absence from her duties and is facing disciplinary action. At the same time, Bandile Masuku has since been fired as Health MEC by the Gauteng government for his involvement in the awarding of the contract. While South Africa is reeling from alleged corruption under the Zuma administration, political analyst Ralph Mateja says the latest alleged scandals come as no surprise.
Those who get involved in such kind of activities do not foresee any kind of consequences being meted against them. I mean, this thing is so fresh, and it happens at the time that we were in the middle of a debate around corruption, and boom, we had this grand-scale corruption, showing exactly that the perpetrators do not fear a sense of consequences, and they're not worried about the national psyche against corruption. Probably they will deal with this.
Another political analyst says the national state of disaster also came with some politicians who saw an opportunity to take advantage of procurement processes.
Greed and corruption has no logic, and therefore there is no way that it would have a perfect timing. It normally comes and is usually preying when there is confusion in a society and a sense of vulnerability. We have seen this during the funerals of Mandela. We have seen this during the funerals of Winnie Madikizela Mandela, Mlangeni, and many others. where you find that corruption is rife, when people think you can bypass processes.
While government has dealt with COVID-19 scandals and corruption in 2020, the question now is whether it has learned any lessons in overlooked procurement processes as it begins its vaccine rollout plans, and whether it has put in place mechanisms to ensure that corruption does not rear its ugly head in efforts to save lives. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Mbali Thethani in Johannesburg.